Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, we have a new Justin Simmons update, and I already know a lot of people are very excited about that. And we're also going to take an inside and detailed look at the relationship between Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. Tim McManus, Jeremy Fowler did a deep dive on what went wrong last year between the quarterback and the head coach, as well as the Birds, on a new column today for ESPN. A lot of interesting stuff to get into there. First, I want to say thank you to the Bird Gang for supporting this channel. Eagles Now just surpassed 77,000 subscribers. So hit that sub button right now if you haven't already done so. And if you're looking for daily Eagles shows, which are informative, entertaining, insightful, thought-provoking, that involve you, the Eagles fan, then join the Bird Gang family here at Chat Sports. And with that, let's talk some Birds right now. All right, welcome into the show. Happy Wednesday. You're watching Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., finally back in the studio after a couple of vacations, and I am ready to get after it and take some souls. And we begin with a new Justin Simmons update. According to Nick Underhill, who covers the New Orleans Saints for ESPN, Justin Simmons, the four-time All-Pro, visiting with New Orleans today. No deal is done, but clearly there is interest between Simmons and New Orleans, and it would give the Saints a very interesting safety tandem between Tyrann Mathieu, Justin Simmons, for a defense that is expected to be a top 10 unit in the National Football League. And Simmons does have a lot of connections to New Orleans. Of course, he's one of the top free agents left available, a player who I have asked and pleaded for Howie Roseman to sign an NFL free agency. More on that in a moment. Defensive coordinator Joe Woods was Simmons' defensive coach in 2016 when Denver drafted him, and the defensive back coach Marcus Robinson worked with Simmons from 2017 to 2018 while in Denver. And as we know, Justin Simmons has a lot of ties to Philadelphia because he played under Vic Fangio when Fangio was the head coach of the Denver Broncos. With the safety market being what it is, whatever team signs Justin Simmons, they're going to get a great player who's a ball hawk, a team captain, has great range, is excellent against the pass and against the run, is that classic center field safety who can cover a lot of ground, making plays on the football, and most importantly for that team who does sign Justin Simmons, they are getting him at a very affordable rate, especially when you look at some of the recent safety contracts that have been signed. Jamal Adams, Tennessee Titans, 1 year, just north of $1 million. Quandre Diggs also signing with Tennessee, a 1-year deal up to $5 million. Of course, that contract incentive-laden. Kevin Byard, the former Eagle, signed with the Bears on a 2-year, $15 million deal. Von Bell, 1 year, $6 million with the Cincinnati Bengals. Eddie Jackson, 1 year, $1.5 million. And Marcus May, 1 year, $1.4 million. With the Miami Dolphins. You have seen some safeties this offseason get the bag. Xavier McKinney getting $17 million per year from the Green Bay Packers, and Antoine Winfield Jr. becoming at the time the highest paid defensive back in the history of football in signing an extension with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And things have clearly shifted for Philadelphia when it comes to their safety position. This is exactly what I've been saying. And I know a lot of people are going to say, you're giving us a Justin Simmons update, Chase. We knew he was never going to sign with Philadelphia. No, we didn't, because throughout this entire offseason, it has made sense. I also said what the Eagles are probably going to do, what they want to do, measure how things are, take the temperature of the Eagles roster at that safety position throughout the start of training camp and see where they are as a football team, and then make a decision then after a handful of practices and determine what they want to do at the safety position. And so far throughout training camp, going into the first preseason game on Friday, watch party coming your way, Eagles-Ravens Friday night, right here on Eagles Now, what the Eagles have seen in bringing back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who's a ball hawk, who's a very instinctual and versatile player, the Eagles have their swagger back on the defensive side. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson has been a part of that as this team's defensive leader. Reed Blankenship has had a very good training camp. James Bradbury and Avonte Maddox are getting backup snaps. As far as safety depth, you have Sidney Brown, who's going to join this team at some point after he tore his ACL against the New York Giants late in the year. And Howie Roseman doesn't really like to invest a lot of money in the safety position. Last year, Philadelphia was 31st or 32nd in safety spending. Right now, the Eagles are 30th. So clearly right now, Philadelphia, Howie Roseman, the coaching staff, they canvass the market. They glance at the market, they look at their current situation at the safety spot, they think that they are clearly good enough right now at that safety position, and they don't need Justin Simmons on this team. I disagree with it because I think he makes your team a lot better, but that's how obviously they view it. So what do you think? Are the Eagles making a mistake in not pursuing Justin Simmons? Let me know down in the comments section. M for mistake, F they're fine. Let me know. We always value your feedback and your opinions right here on Eagles Now. Coming up next here on the show, an inside look at the Jalen Hurts-Nick Sirianni relationship from this story in ESPN's latest piece. But first, today's sponsor, Game Time. Make sure you download the Game Time app, and when you do that and use the code ChatSports, you get $20 off your purchase. This is the only ticketing app that I use. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sporting events, but also concerts, comedy shows, theater, and more. So last-minute tickets, you get flash deals as well to save money and put together some great memories at an event. You see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And with the Game Time app, among all ticketing apps, you're guaranteed on Game Time to get the lowest price guaranteed. You want to go to an Eagles preseason game? You could certainly do that. Eagles-Ravens on the road, Eagles at Patriots, but then Vikings-Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. You want to go to a Philadelphia Phillies game? You can also do that. Upcoming set against the Miami Marlins after the Phils return home after this long road trip. Zone deals are also really cool. You can also toggle on the all-in pricing tool so you see your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And how many times are we on a ticketing app in which we think that we're spending X amount and then at checkout it goes up like 2x and we're like, whoa, where did this come from? And they hit you with those outrageous fees. Don't have to worry about that with the Game Time app. So take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets and NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your purchase. That is the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS. Terms apply. We appreciate Game Time for making today's show possible. Story number 2 here on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now. Let's take an inside look at the relationship between Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts and head coach Nick Sirianni, because right now they're looking to bridge the divide because there was a separation at the end of last year as the Eagles had that awful ending to the 2023 campaign. Tim McManus, Eagles insider for ESPN, and NFL national insider Jeremy Fowler did a deep dive article on Hurts and Sirianni, the relationship, the rift, and how they're trying to patch things up right now. And they really discussed what happened during the 2023 season when the Eagles started 10-1, and then everything precipitously just fell apart at the end of the year, and what was an ugly ending to last year. And how the article starts is very interesting. In the spring, this year, at the start of offseason workouts, OTAs, mandatory minicamp, looking ahead to training camp, Nick Sirianni addressed the team and took accountability for the Eagles' collapse last year. And here's that snippet from the ESPN article. Nick Sirianni took full responsibility that he felt he let the team down and didn't do a good enough job of empowering the players, the team source said. It was passionate and from the heart. It was a breath of fresh air, a second team source said of the moment. Quote, it showed leadership. And that's what leaders do. Leaders take accountability. Leaders admit that they might have flaws and weaknesses, but leaders will stand in front of an entire football team and organization and say, I messed up. This is on me, and this is how we're going to correct course, get on the right track, and fix things. Whether you're in a relationship in which you've made a mistake, whether you make a mistake at work, personally, sometimes you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, I screwed this up, and I'm going to be better because of it. We're going to be better because of it. But it starts with taking accountability, and doing that as a leader is vitally important. ESPN also outlined what we knew last year, that something throughout the 2023 campaign, coming off the Super Bowl loss, was off, and the Super Bowl hangover was real. Getting through last year was monotonous and stressful and difficult. And that's exactly the mood of the Eagles team last year. On the Super Bowl hangover, even when we were 10-1, everyone was walking around like their dog died, a team source said. All year, instead of having fun playing, it was like, oh my gosh, we lost the Super Bowl. And that mood is something that we saw with our very own eyes, but the Eagles were also out of sorts, and at times, especially during that collapse, seemed to play really tight. There was this hesitation from everybody because they were thinking about what happened the previous February. And it felt like that watching the Eagles last year, where everything seemed so damn hard. Now, here's where ESPN starts to detail the Hurts and Sirianni dynamic, which we've talked about a couple of times here on the show. Things were off, including between the head coach and quarterback. ESPN spoke with several sources who detailed a prolonged strain between Hurts and Sirianni during the 2023 campaign, with one source with direct knowledge of the dynamic describing the relationship as, quote, fractured and unhealthy last year. At the root of the divide, a disconnect in offensive visions with what a team source described as a lack of full respect for Sirianni's X's and O's chops. A lot of people who don't like Nick Sirianni are going to point to that line and say, what does Nick Sirianni do? Look, you can be the CEO type of head coach where you don't call plays offensively, you don't call plays defensively. Look at Jim Harbaugh and John Harbaugh. They don't call plays. Look at Bill Belichick. He didn't call plays. There are elite coaches throughout the course of the National Football League who don't necessarily call plays, but are very good coaches. They build a culture. They have great relationships. They take accountability. They have their fingerprints on the organization and the operation of it. Now, as part of this fractured relationship, some of it came down to the Brian Johnson dilemma. Brian Johnson, Jalen Hurts, they've known each other since Hurts was 4 years old. Johnson played high school football under Hurts' father, and he got elevated to offensive coordinator, taking the place of Shane Steichen. And Hurts and Johnson wanted to evolve this scheme. Nick Sirianni did not. And he kind of took the approach, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That led to some internal issues and a rift between Hurts and Johnson, Sirianni, and other offensive people inside the building. Johnson was stuck trying to please people in the building, and he, quote, lost his identity as a coach, according to ESPN. And Jalen Hurts, who's known him since he was 4 years old, probably took issue with Sirianni's handling of it. And then, of course, as we know, Philadelphia moved on from Brian Johnson, and I imagine Jalen was not happy about that. ESPN on the offense. Hurts' desired direction for the offense did not materialize over the course of the 2023 season, which became a source of disappointment. He believed the Eagles were overly reliant on vertical routes and not utilizing the short to intermediate throws, particularly over the middle of the field where Brown has thrived in his career. A source close to Hurts said his hope was things would change as the Eagles began to lose games, but the change never came. And that was what was weird at the time, is how Philadelphia didn't make any changes toward the end of the year. That, as we know, is on Nick Sirianni, and teams started to catch up to what the Eagles were doing, and everything that they were doing became predictable from a year ago when their offense took the league by storm. But also as part of this, Shane Steichen was a much better play caller and had a better feel for the game as compared to Brian Johnson. So all of that and a combination of no pre-snap motion, as the Eagles were 32nd in pre-snap motion, allowed teams to catch up. With that Niners loss, with Philadelphia getting blown out against San Francisco, and that NFC Championship game rematch really started the downfall of the 2023 Birds. And with the lack of adjustments offensively, no answers to blitzes, no hot routes, no sight adjustments, Hurts, as we know, really struggled against the blitz. One of the worst quarterbacks against pressures last year with those no hots and no sight adjustments. And after the Eagles lost to the Giants, in which New York, I think, blitzed Jalen Hurts on nearly 70% of his dropbacks, Jalen Hurts called Wink Martindale, who at that point was let go by the Giants as their defensive coordinator, and Hurts was just looking for answers. And Wink Martindale said, I've been doing this for like 40 years. That has never happened, but it goes to show you how seriously Hurts takes his craft, because he knew that there were issues with that Eagles offense. As we know, it didn't work out because the Eagles got bludgeoned by the Buccaneers in the wild card round, and that forced Philadelphia to make wholesale changes offensively. Nick Sirianni no longer leading the offense. Now Kellen Moore has full reign of this Eagles offense. And that brings us to the relationship now. In hiring former Dallas Cowboys and Chargers offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, Sirianni has assumed much more of a hands-off approach to the offense, and he's given Hurts more space. Interactions between Sirianni and Hurts during practice this spring and summer have appeared limited, while Moore shepherds the offense, a walkie-talkie in hand to call in plays to the quarterback. Sirianni bounces from station to station. There have been other outward displays that suggest the relationship is in a better place, including on Monday when Hurts and Sirianni drove around the practice field on a golf cart together, both smiling as they took a lap in front of the media and some fans before heading out of sight. And this is a legendary photo right here. You have Nick Sirianni, huge smile, Jalen Hurts, huge smile, and then, of course, on brand, Big Dom in the background. And Jalen Hurts has been pushing this golf cart around the NovaCare complex a lot throughout training camp here. This is a good sign, because a symbiotic relationship between a head coach and a quarterback is very important. They're two of the most important and vital pieces of your entire operation, your entire organization, and you want that relationship to be a good one. So now in 2024, it's time to put up or shut up. Jalen Hurts has to play better. Nick Sirianni has to play better. And if Hurts struggles and Sirianni struggles and the Eagles are losers, Eagles could move off of Jalen Hurts realistically. They can move off of Nick Sirianni realistically. And then this time next year, we're having a much different show and outlook where we could be looking at a much different offense and organization. I hope that's not the case. I don't think it's going to be the case, because I do think the Eagles are going to bounce back to that 2022 form and be one of the league's elite teams. So we round out today's show with that. Will the Eagles get back to their 2022 form this year in 2024? Y for yes, N for no. As you venture down there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, shooting for a YouTube plaque. And once we get that, we're having a celebration right here on this show.